In 2009, I found myself yet again on an American Airlines plane. This is not uncommon. I actually have 3.5 million miles in the air. I've had the great fortune to visit many places in the world. Unfortunately, I have not yet been to Africa, but my wife 2 years ago was able to climb Kilimanjaro, which was a big accomplishment for my wife. I stayed home and watched the kids. We have 4 kids, and I said, okay, you go to Kilimanjaro, I'll stay home and watch the kids, and it'll be great. I'm on the plane, I'm in the exit row, and I found myself seated next to Kim Walesh. Kim is the Deputy City Manager for the City of San Jose. The City of San Jose is one of America's largest cities. It's the 10th, it's a million people. And she was talking about some of the challenges that she was facing. And of course, I have a copy of one of my books, and there I am talking about innovation games. So let me make sure I'm on the right thing. Let's see, I have had problems lately with Microsoft PowerPoint crashing when I'm in a GoToMeeting or a Zoom. And I wonder if Microsoft PowerPoint is starting to crash, which would be tragic. I don't know if you can see my screen, but I've got a bizarre spinning wheel that does not look good. So let me turn off my screen for a sec. Let's see. And I apologize. Let me see if I can do something a little better. Okay, well, it seems that Microsoft is back again. And let me try one more time. I'm going to try sharing just the application and see if that helps. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, great. So picking up on the story, I'm sitting next to Kim, and she's talking to me about some of the challenges that she's facing in San Jose. And of course, I'm talking about innovation games. And I want to imagine, I want you to imagine those moments in your life where you go through what I call bullet time, which is something is happening in real time, but your brain is kind of stepping outside yourself cognitively, and you're watching yourself. So we were entering bullet time. And Kim says that the city of San Jose is $100 million in debt. And I'm thinking to myself, I cannot believe that a city that is responsible to its citizens is $100 million in debt. And of course, my timing is all wrong in my presentation because Microsoft just keeps on kind of crashing on me. Let me try one more time. I'm going to try this. Please forgive me on this, guys. I usually don't have this much trouble. I'm going to try and quit a few more applications and see if that helps us. Am I back to sharing? Give me a thumbs up, Anu. Okay, so she says we're 100 million in debt, and I'm thinking to myself, WTF? Because when someone says a city is 100 million in debt, you're going to think WTF. And I thought, oh my God. And then without really thinking about it, I thought about what I do at Contenio and what I help our customers do. We help customers prioritize features. We help them prioritize backlogs. We help them prioritize projects. We help them prioritize technical debt. And this verb prioritize comes up repeatedly in business. And we are experts at prioritization, at portfolio management, at product ownership. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, why not take all of these techniques that we've been engaging for business and prioritize a city budget? So without really thinking about it, and again, remember, I'm in bullet time, I say to Kim, we can help. I say, we can help. And then I realize what I just said. I'm like, oh my God, what did I just say? I just told someone that I can help. And Kim said, well, we're a city and we don't have any money. We can't pay you. And I said, that's okay. I'll do it for free. Because, you know, we should help each other out. And she said, well, that's really kind of you, but, you know, we have a community budget process. And what we want to be able to do is we want you to look at the community budgeting process. And so I said, okay, let's go through the community budgeting process and let's find out how to make that work. And man, this is so embarrassing. The fact that I can't get my slides to go with my talk. As you guys, I should tell you guys, there's a story behind the talk. When I was giving the keynote for the Agile conference, I was so excited that they asked me. I came home and told my wife, and I ended up crying because I was so happy. And then I ended up practicing my talk 9 times. I called every friend I had in the Bay Area, and I said, this talk has to be perfect. And so I ended up timing. So my timing is a little off right now, and I apologize because of this. Let me see if I can, I wonder if I take it out of presentation mode, if that would help us. Which is kind of not the best way to build the talk because I have builds in my talk, but maybe it will stop Microsoft from crashing. And I know, don't hear this as a complaint about Microsoft, because complaining about Microsoft and software quality is like shooting fish in a barrel. It's not fair. So let me try one more time and see if I can just kind of go through the slides without using PowerPoint in presentation mode since it's failing us. So Kim said, if you think about what Kim said, is she said, look, we have this community-based budgeting process run by Mayor Reed. And it's based on getting the community together and we talk about our budget. And so I'm thinking, this is great because I'm an Agilist and I believe in customer collaboration over contract negotiation. This makes me super happy, right? If you're an Agilist and you hear about people collaborating, you're going to be like, yeah, that's awesome. So Kim says, and so that was in the fall of 2009, and Kim says, our next session is in 2010. Would you like to come? And I said, yes. So this is the best picture I have of that session. And you can see there's Kim on the left and there's me on the right. And you can see that there's this big screen and there are people in tables. And the session stunk. What they did was they had a PowerPoint presentation that you can see here at the top. And what they did was they gave every citizen in the room a roll of nickels, and there were 5 jars that represented the priorities of the city. And the idea was the citizens would put the nickels in the jar based on the priorities that they felt were important. Now, what this really is a survey. And this, because it was a survey, has all the problems of surveys, which means surveys suck. Just putting it out there. Surveys suck. And the reason they suck is surveys only work when the decision that you're making is not based on the opinion of others. So let's say Anu and I are going to go out to dinner. And let's say that Anu likes broccoli and I don't like broccoli. Well, it doesn't matter because she can order what she wants to eat and I can order what I want to eat. And you know, we're just friends and it doesn't matter. It's not a shared economic resource. But if I were married to Anu, now we've got a different issue because dinner represents a shared economic resource of the family. And we have to negotiate the nights that we eat or don't eat broccoli, because if we only eat broccoli because she loves it so much, I'm going to be unhappy and I'm going to feel not fairly treated. And if we never eat broccoli because Anu knows I like it, she's going to feel slighted and unfair. And that's just human nature. So when you have a shared economic resource, you can't use surveys to make the decision because the actual opinion of the other people in the room matter to you and the decision makers. and it creates a foundation that's a much stronger way to act. So I said to Kim, let's make this a collaborative experience. We've got a lot of experience making things collaborative at Contenio. And now to make things a collaborative experience, and again, I normally do this through a build, so I apologize, but there's elements that you must have. First, you have to have a goal. So let me kind of add a shape to this so I can use a shape while I'm talking. If you want to make something a collaborative experience, you have to have a goal, something to achieve. You have to have a field of play, a place in which I can do my work. You have to have a feedback mechanism, in a sense, a way to keep score. Because I'm trying to achieve a goal and I'm trying to work in a given field, I have to have resources, the things that I need to use to achieve my goal. I need to know how to use my resources and how to interact with others, meaning I need to know the rules. And finally, the curious thing about games is that we have voluntary participation. We voluntarily choose when we step on, when I'm out here in this dark space, I can touch the ball with my hands. When I voluntarily step into this space here, I voluntarily choose not to touch the ball with my hands. When I go to work, I don't have to have when I'm at home, I don't have to have a stand-up meeting with my family. I might, but that would seem kind of bizarre. But at work, I voluntarily choose to work in a certain way about how we organize our daily activities. Now, that's a game. And so if you think about a game has all those mechanics. And I'm just going to zorch this up a little bit to say a serious game is the game designed for a primary purpose other than pure entertainment. So we have games, right? And we do games because we derive pleasure. You can play Scrabble, you can play cribbage. Most game theorists say that the oldest known game of humanity was in fact invented in Africa, Mancala. So Mancala is perceived to be or believed to be the oldest known game. It's more than 3,500 years old, and it was invented in Africa. So when we look at what in a sense separates higher order species, and I don't mean humans, all higher order species play. Humans just have evolved play into games. So when I think about a game at work, all I'm saying is a serious game is a game whose primary purpose is something other than pure entertainment. Now, it turns out that because of all of these factors, games are in fact the ideal collaboration tool. And some people have had, and I've had the good fortune of teaching people certain things in my classes, and usually people walk away from one of my classes going, wow, that was just the most amazing experience, because you learn that games are in fact the ideal collaboration tool, and you're able to solve problems that you could never solve in the past because the problems that we're facing are collaborative in nature. Now, we've got a lot of games at Contenio and in my book, Innovation Games. We've got games for discovering unmet needs. We've got games for understanding relationships. We've got games for identifying impediments. We've got games to help people plan out projects. We've got games to help people understand how their software is used and when it's used. But none of those games were the right game for the city because the city was facing a prioritization problem. So in fact, we have a perfect game for prioritization. It's called Buy a Feature. We take 12 to 20 items. We take 12 to 20 items described in terms of benefits and cost, and we give 5 to 8 players a limited budget and tell them buy what they want. Now, this is the normal view of Buy a Feature. The problem is that the city didn't have the money for Buy a Feature. So remember, they're $100 million in debt. So I did what game designers do. I modified the game. I did a game mod. And I created a new game that I call the budget game. And in the budget game, you have the green sheets. The green sheets represent funding proposals, desirable things that the citizens can fund. But there's no money. To get money, you have to make a budget cut. And what this does is it puts citizens into the reality of facing every westernized democracy's problem. So every westernized democracy has the same terminal condition if they don't manage their money, and that is they will entitle themselves out of existence. The Greeks knew this when they talked about representational democracy. And if you look at some of the early writings about Greek democracy and the representational function of democracy, you will entitle yourself out of existence if the citizens lose engagement. If we lose engagement with the citizens, the democracy crumbles. So what we did was we created San Jose Money, and this is exactly what the money looked like. And the way the rules of the game worked is we presented the green sheets. Then we presented the red sheets. The table had to have unanimous agreement on a red sheet item. And if they achieved red sheet agreement, then the facilitator would distribute the money to the participants, and then they would be funding the items that they wanted. Now, to give you an idea of the magnitude of these items, look at some of the green sheet items. Preventing graffiti for gangs, improving children's health, adding park rangers, which is a way to increase public safety, which at a much lower cost than actual policemen. Eliminating the police helicopter would save $1.2 million. Taking the fire truck staffing from 5 people to 4 people would save $5 million. Delaying the opening of a community center in the Bascom school district would save $800,000. And these are not easy choices. I always laugh when product owners in Agile tell me how hard it is to prioritize their backlog. Oh, my backlog, it's so hard to prioritize. And I'm, look, join one of my budget games, watch citizens try to prioritize fighting gang violence versus fighting children's health. That's a tough backlog to prioritize. So what we did was we assembled a team of facilitators. Now, some of these people are amazing Agilists. For example, this guy is Tom Grant, who used to be at Forrester. This is David Chilcott. This is Chris Sims. This is Dennis Britton. This is, oh God, I'm blanking on her name, but she works at Solutions IQ. Deb Colden. This guy works at Cisco. This is Stephen Kwan. He's a professor at San Jose State University. This is Jorge Zavala. He is a leader in the Hispanic community, and he managed our multilingual effort to reach out to the Hispanic and Vietnamese community. This is his son, Santiago. This is Dan O'Leary, who's my best friend and my CTO from my company. Normal people committed to making this event happen, all donating their time for free. So there's an example of Brett McCallan. This is an example of what the table looked like. If I move this over, you can see they've got the red sheets, they've got the green sheets, they've got the money. Now you're gonna ask me, who were the participants? The participants were San Jose residents, and they were the neighborhood association leaders. So the way the city of San Jose is organized is there's a city. The city is organized into districts. The districts are organized into neighborhood associations. So we reached out to the neighborhood association leaders, and we also reached out to the youth commission, and then we had everyone register so that people at the tables were balanced, and then we had subject matter experts walking around answering questions. Now, the subject matter experts were people like Fire Chief William McDonald. Now, what I love about this picture is you can see that the city leaders are listening to the citizens. And what they were really talking about was asking the fire chief, is it legal to remove a person in the truck from 5 to 4? Is it safe? Will we lose? Will we be unsafe if we reduce the staffing? And the subject matter experts were answering the questions, and now the citizens are truly engaged. So let's look at some of the results. We had 12 tables in the room, approximately 7 people at a table, and we had pavement maintenance as number 10 and branch libraries in the MLK libraries. So if you look at the total, the libraries and the pavement maintenance were equal, but if you look at the individual ranking, the San Jose citizens chose pavement maintenance over libraries. And it was radical. Now, I'm a researcher. I don't know anything about, city politics. And Mayor Reed calls me up and he says, Luke, are these results accurate? And I'm like, absolutely, Mayor Reed. We've triple checked them. He said, do you know that these results are radical? I said, why? He said, Luke, the number one issue that I'm facing right now in San Jose is crumbling infrastructure, and we have to improve our infrastructure. And he said, but if I go to the public and I say we have to improve pavement maintenance over libraries, the friends of the libraries will come out in force and I will get, skewered in the press. He said, but there's no friends of pavement. And I said, yeah, I totally understand that. I'm a technology guy, and product owners never seem to care about infrastructure. They never seem to care about security and reliability and scalability and maintainability. They just want new features. So yes, I, as a technology person, I understand this completely, that if you give citizens a choice, they will choose what's best for the city. And this is a recurring theme that we see in all of our work about participatory budgeting. Now, there was a huge impact from 2011. We did reduce the fire department staffing. We did reduce the police department staffing. We did put some delays in libraries and eliminate a few services, but we were able to fund some key proposals, including increasing anti-gang efforts, which were rising in the city at the time. And it was so successful that what we learned was that you're an Agilist. I don't care if you're Scrum or DSDM or SAFe or Scrum at Scale or Nexus or whatever. At the heart of it, you're an Agilist, right? You work according to 4 values of an Agile manifesto. You have 12 practices that you're trying to honor. So as an Agilist, what we learned was that we can use frameworks created for the Agile community, by the Agile community, to tackle much bigger goals. And I'm going to go to one of my punchlines at the end, but if all we're doing in the Agile community is building better software, I'm going to go find a different community, because I am way more about just building better software. I want to create a better world. That's what Agile should be about. And we've learned that we can do that. So then what we heard from the citizens, and I did another thing that was radical for the city, I baked a half-hour retrospective into the event, because I'm an Agilist, I'm going to do a retrospective. And the citizens were like, this is amazing, this is great. What about adding ideas? What if we had a sales tax to increase revenue? So we did it again in 2012. And we added not just cost savings, but actual tax increases. We also increased the complexity. We said you can select one or each. And we also added write-in candidates, where each table could add one new idea and they could contribute their ideas into this. And it was wildly successful. And I'll send a video. I'm going to save a little bit of time, but normally there's a set of videos on YouTube and I would show a video, but I'm going to save a little bit of time because I had that problem in the beginning. And it was amazing. If you watch this video, what you see is the energy in the room, and you actually see people changing their mind. You see Democrats agreeing that they have to make some cuts. You see Republicans agreeing that they have to raise taxes, because they're collaborating and talking and working together. Now, some of the people in the Agile community know Lisa Adkins. I teach a master class for Agile consultants. And in this special master class, Lisa was in one of my special master classes. And I was talking about this passion of mine. And I said, I've got a nonprofit, but I don't have a good name. And Lisa said, you should call it Every Voice Engaged, because you want to get every single person in the community engaged. And I just said, I love it. So this is the name of our nonprofit. And I'll be forever thankful for Lisa attending that masterclass. Now, this is a photo of 2013 where we increased the number of tables. We increased the size. You can see that we now have 18 tables. Again, all of the facilitators are giving their time for free. All of the citizens are coming in. And we also expanded overseas. This is my friend Jurgen de Smet, and he added this in Kirchhoff, Belgium. So now we've done Lublin, Poland. We've done things in Lean Agile, or Scotland. We've done things in Kirchhoff, Belgium, Missoula, Montana, Santa Fe, New Mexico. And one of the things is Jurgen says that American politics would be better if they served the same beverages that they serve in Belgium. So then in 2014, the city said, we want to keep going and expand it even more. Can you do online? And I said, yes, we can. We have a platform for this. It's called Weave, and it's awesome. And so we went online, and we had 3,500 chats. And this is an example of where, you know, the Agile community gets it wrong, because they say, oh, everything has to be in person. Well, that's actually not true, because let's look at what the San Jose residents thought about the forums. David E., interesting exercise. I've done it in person at City Hall once before, worked very similarly. Gene, this is better than the in-person game. Facilitator, well, what did you like about it more, Gene? It's not noisy. I could hear everyone. Real-time updates of the balances. I could keep track of other values via their bids. No side chatter, better focus on task. And here's the kicker, everyone. David E., it came down to the facts. No body language, no prejudices, just ideas in dealing. And I gotta tell you, this is something that the Agile community has all wrong. If the only mechanism that you have for in-person collaboration, or collaboration, is in-person techniques, then you are buying into the fact that the way someone looks, the way someone talks, the way that they have their accent, how they present themselves matters more than the information in their head and their ability to contribute to a knowledge worker's idea. And we've got to fix that. Absolutely, there are times where we want to be in person. But to say that in person is better than online is like saying men are better than women. We are equal. We are different, but we are equal. And so this is really important, because this is fighting Agile dogma, right? We have some managers who say all teams should be co-located, and then the same managers will say we need distributed teams to scale. And we need both. We need to do the Scrum yes and for collaboration, even when that and conflicts with some consultant's dogma or some consultant's income. We need to embrace multi-dimensional collaboration. Now, what we learned through this process of years of work in San Jose is that you can repeatedly use Agile collaboration frameworks to accomplish these goals. This wasn't a one-time activity. We are still working with San Jose. We're still engaging citizens in San Jose. We're still expanding these activities. Now, the citizens came to me and said, you know, we're a little tired of making cuts to our city budget. Can't we grow? Can't we find a way to take all of our energy and help our city grow? Do you have any games, Luke, about growth? Well, yes, we do. We have a game that is related to products. How should our product grow? And that game is based on shaping the product to meet your needs, and it's called Prune the Product Tree. And the idea behind Prune the Product Tree is I represent the growth of a product or service as a tree, and I look at the infrastructure of that tree, and I talk about how it will grow and how it will produce tasty benefits. So there's a nutritious infrastructure that produces tasty benefits. And we do Prune the Product Tree for products and services and portfolios and companies. And we took that, and by the way, if you go online and you search for Prune the Product Tree, you'll find many, many examples of different trees that are online. This tree right here, for example, in the top right, that's from an Oracle project. Sometimes people do Agile transformations. You can see an Agile enterprise adoption tree, etc. And I've even done Prune the Product Tree for the Scrum Alliance. The Scrum Alliance is one of our customers. They both use the Weave platform and endorse it. And so this was a project we did for the Scrum Alliance about how should the Scrum Alliance grow? How can we improve the Scrum Alliance and its community? And notice that there are multiple trees, so we can start to engage multiple teams in collaboration and then analyze the data across the teams to find patterns. So we took this technique and we did it with the city, and we did it both in person and online. And we talked about the Great Neighborhoods Project in 2013, where we were looking at how to make neighborhoods great in the city of San Jose. Now, in 2017, we did it again with Make Our Community Great, which a question of what would help make your community great. And you can see that what we did in this particular case is we did foam core stands where the citizens were in the room working in multiple stands in this huge convention center. So we've got a lot of experience with helping products grow, helping portfolios grow, helping agile teams grow, and helping communities grow. Now, this is what we do for product road mapping, and I think that cities need a roadmap too. Cities need an opportunity to continue to grow and continue to evolve. And again, what we're finding is that you can use agile collaboration frameworks to accomplish much bigger goals. Now, where we are right now with the city is that we've moved from an advisory capacity to an actual budget allocation capacity. Centennial runs a website for the city called San Jose Decides. And what we do in San Jose Decides is that we give citizens direct control of money. The prior work was based on an advisory function. In this case, the city actually gives money to the citizens in a district, and the citizens are in complete control of the money. They do all the phases of design thinking. They share ideas, they take the best ideas, they create proposals, then they take the proposals and they choose the proposals. And they do this through a combination of different platforms, Weave and Google Maps for getting ideas, and we help the citizens manage that process and manage that result. And the citizens set the rules for this. We give them guidance on what are good rules, but the citizens choose the rules about how they want to decide. And this notion of participatory budgeting is really fundamental and really exciting. Now, this is so powerful that I actually took this to Sunnyvale Middle School in Sunnyvale, California, where we gave the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders of the middle school $500 under one condition. The kids were in complete control of the money. Of course, when I said that to the original parents, they're like, are you crazy? What if the kids choose a pizza party? And I said, well, if the kids choose a pizza party, they probably needed a party. But let's see what the kids choose. So what they chose was a 3D printer for their art lab, so they can learn a technology that they know is important from their moms and dads talking, for $500. And the kids had all these great ideas. If I show you this picture, because it was originally a build, right? The first year they chose a water bottle refilling station. The second year they chose a printer. Yeah, and they did have some goofy ideas, like a half pipe for the skateboard, or a pond, or you know, give us a smoothie machine. But when at the end of the session, when you look at what they chose were very practical, very sensible ideas that were really quite amazing. Now, participatory budgeting comes in all shapes and sizes, but it basically looks like this. People generate ideas, people vote for the priorities, and the projects with the most votes get funded. I helped put this together for Participatory Budgeting Scotland in Scotland, and what we can do with the Centennial platform is we can make that a collaborative experience as opposed to a single survey. And that's a really important thing because the opinion of how we want to spend the money matters. Now, here's a question. Are you a Monopoly butt? Does anyone in the session play Monopoly? Couple of yes? Yes? Okay.
Yes, sir.
What happens in your family game of Monopoly when you land on free parking? You can put it into the chat if you want. What happens when you land on free parking? Sometimes you get money from a pot we created. That's right, Angie. However, that's not the rule of Monopoly. In the rule of Monopoly, the only thing that happens when you land on free parking is you land on free parking. Literally nothing happens in free parking. So when people are talking about Agile, we get these really interesting statements and really interesting qualities, right? Now, what I want you to do, and if I were doing this talk in a conference center, I'd have everyone stand up, I'd have you put on your hips, and I'd have you do the Amy Cumey introduction, which says, hi, my name is blank, and I'm a game designer. Because the moment you change the rules of a game, you are a game designer. By definition, you design something new, you change the rules. Now, what that means is that the moment that you change Scrum, you're not a Scrum butt, you're a Scrum game designer. And I hate the word scrum butt, because usually the word scrum butt is associated with someone who has an economic interest in preventing the evolution of an agile method. And that's not how methods should work. Methods should evolve and change over time. You know, a lot of people like to criticize the Scaled Agile framework, but let's also look at the Scaled Agile framework. It came out with version 3. It got feedback from its community. It came out with version 4. It got feedback from its community. It came out with version 4.5. It got feedback from its community. It's going to come out with SAFe version 4.6 next week. So you have to ask yourself, how is a given method evolving to meet the evolutionary needs of the community it is serving? And how are we changing things? And so I don't like the word scrum butt, because if you're a game modifier, then you're a method modder. And I think you should change that language. Now, how far can we push these mods? If I've got a whole bunch of business frameworks and I've got social problems, how far can I go? Well, if you think about things like school programs, like I'm going to raise a bond and I'm going to put some funding in this school, this is an economic problem. And these are technical economic problems. And these are things that we would use buy a feature or the Weave platform for. Like, but how about a question called, how do we deal with school overcrowding? School overcrowding is not an economic problem per se, it's a wicked problem. And I want to start to distinguish between technical problems and wicked problems. Technical problems are things like budgets and roadmaps. They're clearly defined with shorter and often repeating time horizons, like an annual budget. The failure is not considered catastrophic, because if something's going wrong, I can step in and kind of fix it. I can add resources, I can change resources. And these projects tend to be relatively driven by knowledge and economics. I'm going to put so much money in, I'm going to turn the crank, and then get so much money out. But wicked problems have a different structure, like urban planning or other problems. There's a long time horizon. Usually the time horizon is longer than the time horizon of a leader or an elected official. So I have to make investments in an uncertain future. I've got inertia keeping me wanting to do the same thing, and failure is catastrophic. If I'm working in Los Altos School District and I don't deal with the fact that I'm going to run out of room, I'm going to have kids coming into school and I won't have a place to put them. Failure is catastrophic. It's hard because there's multiple actors and there's values involved. And wicked problems exist at all levels of society, at school districts, the California drought. We have American problems like immigration reform and healthcare reform, and we have global problems. The opiate epidemic is not an American problem. That is a global problem. You know, the one thing that America has successfully exported around the world is childhood obesity. And it's a really sad thing to look at what's happening to our children around the world. IBM is telling us that with cognitive services and artificial intelligence, 40% of the jobs that we have now are going to go away or change. How are we as a global community preparing for the new jobs that are going to be available? How are we adjusting our school system and our training? And all of these are wicked problems. Now, do we have wicked problems in business? I'm going to say we do, right? What kinds of wicked problems do we have? We have late software. We have massive technical debt. We have low adoption rates. We have questions about how to scale Agile. These are all wicked problems. So how do I deal with this? How can I say we can help? How can I say business is good at solving wicked problems? I can't. Because if you actually study the science of strategic wicked problem decision making, and if you look at research like Paul Nutt about why decisions fail, he finds that 50% of strategic business decisions fail. So when you're facing, for everyone on this phone call right now, any strategic decision that you're facing, you've got a 50% failure rate just because you're using a bad decision-making process. You're taking a technical decision-making process and applying it to a wicked problem, and you're likely to fail 50% of the time. So business decisions fail because we don't create options, we don't assess the actions of how we're going to get things done, but we don't consider the drawbacks of those actions. And this is not going to make sense right now, but I'll get there. I'll give you an example. and we don't actually collaborate. Paul Nutt's research shows that the best decisions are made when we in fact collaborate. Now, if we don't have a good way to solve wicked problems in business, do we have a good way to solve wicked problems socially? And the answer is, I didn't know that until in 2012 when I was giving the keynote at South by Southwest. I met Amy Lee, and she's a program director for the Kettering Foundation. And the Kettering Foundation, which is www.kettering.org, studies the institution of democracy itself and asks itself a simple question: what does it take to make democracy function as it should? And what they found is that the essence of democracy is getting citizens together into a process called a deliberative forum, where the citizens look at a strategy for attacking a problem, the actions that must be taken, and the drawbacks of each action. And so let me give you an example. If I were to look at the California drought, I could have creating more water, or increasing conversation, or modernizing governance. And if you look at this, you can see that these two actions are kind of in opposition, and this one is different. So I've got two things in opposition and one that's different. And that's a hallmark of deliberative decision making. I need two things that are opposing and one that's different. Now let's go further into creating or capturing more water. I might say that I could build a desalination plant. I might say I could change the levees so the water flows differently within the state. Or I could build a reservoir. And if I were to describe just these actions, you might think, wow, those are really good actions. But whoa, wait a minute. What about the drawbacks? Well, a desalination plant is going to create highly concentrated wastewater. Changing the flow of water could hurt an ecosystem and harm the agriculture, which is a big part of the state budget and state economy. Reservoirs are actually really expensive, but they don't actually save as much money or save as much water as people think. So the problem is that I cannot make a good strategic decision if I only look at actions. I have to look at drawbacks. And what we did with Kettering is we built a platform to scale deliberation. And the way it works is that you're presented with a given strategy, and in this case, the strategy is creating and capturing more water, and you rank what you think we should do, right? Now, you do this individually so to create a baseline of opinion. And I did this personally, right? Do we think we should take this action? California should increase production and use of recycled water. I think we should do that. Okay. Now, let's look at the drawbacks. The inherent drawback of recycled water is what's called the ick factor. That means it goes from toilet to tap, which makes it sound worse. And I have to rank, not only should I support the action, but what's my degree of acceptance of the drawback? I can live with that. I'm conflicted. I can't live with that. What our software then does is it takes all of the individual opinions of the group and it analyzes and aggregates them into a dynamic visualization of the group opinion. And now the group starts talking about this. And if anytime during the deliberation, someone causes you to change your mind, change one of your decisions about an action or a drawback, this picture, this visualization will dynamically update to reflect the changing opinion. No individual knows what other people thought, but the group knows where the collective common ground for action exists. And when you're done, you can look at the different strategies that people are willing to support, and you can start to see within a given group, where do they want to go? How do they want to work? And what do they want to attack? Now, how could I do this in software, right? If I've got these things like school capacity planning and drought and financial reform and obesity and other factors I want to attack, how could I do this in Agile for these problems? Well, let's look at scaling massive technical debt. If I have massive technical debt, one way to do it is to rewrite it. Another way is to don't write it at all, to buy it. But a third way to do it is to build a roadmap collaboratively that solves my technical debt problem through collaboration between the business leaders and the technical leaders. Again, option one, the developers will say, let's rewrite. The business leader says, well, if you want to rewrite, why do I have to rewrite it at all? I'll just buy the software. But the third option is to collaborate. So let's try it again. If I want to scale Agile, I could go off and buy a bunch of consultants, spend a lot of money, or I could do a lot of retrospectives, but both of these will fail if I don't address my actual software architecture, because architecture is the rock that will break the water of the Agile process. So you've got to fix your architecture to scale. Now, what we're learning then in this process and over these years of work is that collaboration frameworks invented in business can be used to solve social problems, and collaboration frameworks invented to solve social problems can be used in business. And so this is where Contenio now focuses its efforts. It's on collaboration frameworks, because the use of collaboration frameworks spans both business and social uses. Now, the question becomes, what other kinds of opportunities can we create, as opposed to what kinds of problems can we tackle? Now, let's look at retrospectives. The Agile Manifesto says at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective and then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. This is Speedboat. It's one of the most common retrospective techniques. It's something I invented in my book, Innovation Games, and it's used around the world. Well, but if I look at how people start to go into Agile, and this is a build slide, so I'm going to try and really manage the build. But what happens is when you start an Agile adoption, you see a lot of people loving retrospectives, and they get a lot of value from retrospectives because the team is learning how to be a team. Then in the second phase, you get the team maturity. And when the team starts to mature, the retrospectives become harder because the improvements are harder. But then we get into the third phase, which is in a large organization, you start to hit organizational limits. And a single team can't continue to make improvements because the other teams need to agree. And it's right here that the most important step occurs. If you keep doing team-based retrospective in a large organization, Agile will start to fail precisely because the only problems left are at multi-team levels, not individual teams. And if you don't scale retrospectives, you can't scale Agile. Now, the way that we do retrospectives is that we invite every team into the retrospective, and then we analyze the data across all the teams. So imagine each of your teams doing a sailboat in a platform that had a common data set. And this is an example for a company, BWin Party, where we did a 350-person, 42 Scrum team retrospective. And each dot represents an anchor or a propeller. And what we did was we analyzed the data by the organizational structure, enterprise, pod, or product line, product and team. And then we looked at it from Diana Larson's circles and soup. Is it a people issue? Is it a process issue? Is it a technology issue? And what we found is that the teams are working, but there were enterprise problems that we could attack that would improve all of the teams. Now, we can use this. I have a vision in my mind of doing a retrospective for a city where we could help the city leaders identify through citizen feedback how to improve the city. Now, I may be going the wrong way, and maybe what we should look at is family units. I'm proud to say that there's a book written by Kathleen Grant and Laura Osborne where they are family therapists, and they took innovation games and they applied them to family therapy to help things like having people with gambling addictions through collaborative play with their family figure out how to get over a gambling addiction or a drug addiction. It's really amazing work. So I'm almost done. And so now I'm going to say, so now what? If you think about what we're talking about, you might think that all these people are amazing superheroes. They're collaboration heroes. But they're really not. If you look at the Avengers, there's two Avengers that I want to talk about. There's Hawkeye and the ballet dancer. Most people don't know that she's a former ballet dancer. And Hawkeye doesn't have any superpowers. He just doesn't have any fear, right? So these are just normal people, like these people who've done work in San Jose for all of these years that we've been working in San Jose. Some of you know the company C Prime as an agile consulting firm. That's Zubin Irani. He's the head of C Prime, and he just donated his time. Just amazing people doing amazing things with just normal capabilities, right? So now here's my request to you: play 2 games to change the world. Except if you walk up to your boss and say, let's play, your boss may not find the idea of play a good idea. So I'm going to teach you how to say, let's play a game in boss language. Instead of saying, boss, I want to engage my team in a goal-directed activity, you're not going to say, boss, I want to play a game. You're going to say, boss, I want to engage my team in a goal-directed activity with clearly defined rules of engagement. Progress towards achievement of the goal will be tracked through clearly communicated status indicators. You just said, let's play a game in boss language. So if your boss doesn't want you to play, say it this way. To zorch it up, add the word strategic. To make sure it's not fun, call it an exercise. And to make it agile and cool, call it an information radiator as opposed to a status indicator. If you say all of these things, you're going to excite your boss. Now, if we do this, if we each play 2 games per year with 5 participants per game and a 10% player conversion rate, in 25 years, we will have engaged 250,000 people on the planet in collaborative play about problems that matter. And we just started this in PB Scotland, and you can see this massive expansion of collaborative play and participatory budgeting in Scotland alone. Imagine if this map were Agile Africa. You need to do this because the world needs you. Thank you so much.